7 signs it's time to end your diet. First off, congrats. If you're even considering ending your diet, you probably had a relatively successful one and lost a good amount of weight. Let's hope so anyway. Acknowledge what you've achieved, because doing so will help you make the most logical decision next. It's time to end your diet if you've lost more than 10 to 15% of your body weight since you started. If you started at 200 pounds, right around that 170 to 180 mark, things are gonna get really tricky. Dieting is essentially controlled starvation. Losing too much weight in one go can significantly increase your likelihood of an unwanted rebound. Now, you might think you have the willpower. You might think the results you've seen are addicting enough to stop you from breaking in the future. But the best approach is to always get out before you actually need to. Run a diet break for 2 to 4 weeks, or come up to maintenance for 2 to 4 months. Enjoy the extra food and get ready to go again if you really want to. You need to stop dieting if you're completely stuck and don't know what to do next. If you've gotten to the point where your calories are so low and your steps or cardio are so high that you cannot possibly handle another adjustment, there's no macro split or magic calorie cycling approach that is gonna save you here. What you need is more muscle mass. You need to think about reverse dieting and then spending a lengthy period of time building muscle to actually improve your metabolism. This way, your next diet will be much easier and you'll be able to get leaner each and every time. You should consider finishing your fat loss diet if you can't sleep. If you're dieting so hard that you're losing sleep, you're probably also losing muscle, which slows down your metabolism and makes dieting even harder. That's exactly what happened in this study, where both groups lost weight, but the group who were underslept lost more muscle and less fat. Poor sleep also makes you hangry, irritable, and far more likely to cheat on your diet. Nip it in the bud and get out early. Come back up to maintenance until your sleep is in check, then you can try again later. If your sex drive is non-existent, then bro, it's time to stop dieting. Most people who get to extremely lean levels of body fat will experience a huge drop in sex drive. If you're a bodybuilder getting on stage next week, maybe that's something you're okay with in the pursuit of that thing. But for the rest of us, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that juice is worth the squeeze just for a few shredded pics on Instagram. It's your call. Call it quits on your fat loss diet if your training performance has tanked. Remember, the goal is fat loss, not weight loss. You want to keep your training performance and strength up to keep all of your muscle. Otherwise, you'll lose weight, but plenty of it will be muscle, and you won't have the lean look that you want. Instead, you'll just be a skinnier version of yourself. If your training performance is really suffering, consider a diet break or even returning to maintenance for a period of time. Get it in check, then feel free to have a go at dieting again. It's time to end your diet if little things stress you out way more than they should. Many factors cause stress, and being in a calorie deficit is one of them. Being too stressed can increase your hunger and your craving, especially if you're a stress eater or someone who typically reaches for food to relax. Now, that in itself is going to make sticking to your diet infinitely more difficult. So consider a diet break, which is just a period of time eating at maintenance. It's not throwing in the towel, it's simply pressing the pause button. Reduce your stress levels, relax, enjoy a bit of extra food and some way better training sessions whilst maintaining your weight, then you can press play on the diet again in the future. Please stop dieting if you find yourself not being able to adhere to your diet plan or your macros. If you find yourself going crazy on food every weekend and having to work even harder during the week to make up for it, or if you're stuck in some sort of binge, restrict, binge cycle, now is not the time for you to be dieting. There's no point starting a diet when you cannot be consistent with it. You're literally setting yourself up for failure. Come back up to maintenance, build some consistency, and then you can try again later. Now, picture this. You finish dieting, whether you've been as successful as you wanted to, or if you had to stop early, the big question is this: how do you go from the diet to non-diet without gaining all the weight back? Dieting involves eating at a calorie deficit, which involves eating less calories than you're burning. If you're no longer needing to diet, we no longer need to do this, which means it's time to get back towards maintenance calories. A diet break, maintenance period, or a reverse diet are all essentially the same thing. When you're dieting for fat loss, you've created a deficit. It might be 300 or 500 calories per day. Depends on how large you are. When you diet break, you're simply going to add those 300 to 500 calories also back into your daily diet. Now, if you're a smaller human than you were when you first began dieting because you've lost some weight, keep in mind your metabolism might have adapted somewhat. So we might be a little bit more conservative with those numbers. If you were in a 300 to 500 calorie deficit, adding back, say, 250 to 400 calories would be a good place to start. But please don't fall for the trap of thinking that adding 50 calories back into your diet is going to put you into a better position. The reality is, by doing that, you're just reducing the size of the deficit that you're in you're not actually getting out of it. That would be kind of like putting your finger in boiling water and then slowly pulling it back out. Just doesn't make sense. If you're done dieting, then stop dieting and get back to maintenance as quickly as possible. And yeah, you might see a small jump on the scales initially as you begin eating more carbs and sodium than what you're used to, which will mean your muscles are fuller and there's more food in your digestive system. But in time, these things will stabilize and then you'll be in a position to keep moving forward and making intelligent decisions from there.